these meetings, what they're intended for is to meet people within the community that are supportive of our mission, so everybody else can know who's within the community, whether it's in your local community or your national community or even a worldwide community. We've had individuals here that have been in other countries. We want people to know what services are out there, what type of people are out there, and who are supporting the mission, as well as we are starting to we want to have discussions. So today, we're going to be having that as well with our guest speaker, Erica Johnson. So I'm going to give the floor to you, Miss Michaela.
Donations can also be accepted as well on Facebook and website, or you can directly call us as well. And we are very grateful for any and every donation. So this is also something really exciting. If you can't donate or for some reason you don't want to get the word out through posting on Facebook, you can actually make it as a fundraiser for your birthday, which I know a lot of people do for a whole bunch of different nonprofits. So now you can do that as well. I don't think, though, it has to be a birthday. You can do it for any type of fundraiser. And if you need any assistance on that, please email us at hopehealingfoundation@gmail.com. I'll also write it in the chat as well. Or you can find me on Facebook under Michaela Rose, and you can feel free to message me as well for anything. I think that's all I have for you, Cedric.
I believe that we're going to take a moment to introduce everybody.
Yep. So everybody that's in the room, we just want you to take a quick, like 30 seconds, just briefly introduce yourself and what you do, and then we're gonna move forward to our guest speaker. So we'll start off with Miss Linda Cray. Would you like to give us just a brief description of yourself? I'll unmute you real quick. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. Hi, I'm Linda Kriya, and I'm a spiritual energy healer and coach, and I've been sitting back being very quiet the last few months. I haven't done a whole lot of outreach. So anyway, I'm sort of like refocusing on myself, but I'm very happy to be in this group. And I just gave blood today. Oh. So I'm very happy to be part of this group, and I'm looking forward to learning from you and being able to support others through loving attention to all.
Thank you. We're always glad to have your support.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. And we're going to say Dr. Art. We're going to unmute you, if I can. There we go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dr. Art Hochberg out here in the woods of Pennsylvania, and I'm a strong supporter of my two friends here. And the few meetings I've been to, I've seen some really good staff, and you've got some great energy going. And this is the way to do it, is to put all good hearts together and work for the good of the people, because we're living in times where the young people particularly need support to negotiate their way through this rather strange world that we live in.
Yeah.
So God bless you all for doing this work.
Thank you, Dr. Art.
Thank you,
Okay.
Doc.
All right, suicide prevention. Austin, you want to give a brief description? I don't know why it is not. There we go. I unmuted you. Just give us a brief description of yourself and your Facebook group.
All right, so I'm the head admin of Suicide Awareness and Prevention. We pretty much run that group 24/7. All of our admins and mods have experience with DBT, have had or have been through it, myself included. So we just want to be there for everybody in case they need after-hours support.
All right, thank you, Austin. Appreciate your support. All right, Mr. David.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I had to switch. I was in the car, literally, and just sat down at the computer and switched over.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is David Pineda. Everybody calls me DP. I work with veterans, so I'm part of a company called VA Claims Insider. I run a 27-person team, and we exclusively work with veterans that are trying to navigate the system of the VA to get themselves help, whether it be mental health or physical things. And we do a lot of outreach as it relates to mental health. So we bring providers in, have conversations, and truly try to work towards creating awareness by having conversations, being veterans, talking about our stories, sharing the things that we deal with. My personal journey as a veteran who's disabled, who has a service dog in training, and really kind of going through the process of telling my truth. So that's a little bit about who I am, and I'm glad to be here and take part in the roundtable.
All right, David. Thank you
All
for
right.
joining us.
Thanks for joining us, Dave.
All right. So give it to you, Cedric.
All right, folks. Well, tonight we have a very, very special guest and a very good friend of ours personally. Her name is Erica Johnson. Erica Johnson is not only a family therapist like ourselves, she's also the founder of HeartsChat Internet Radio Show. She's currently working right now in the DMV and has several years of experience in the mental health field, ranging from school-based services, home-based services, outpatient, and other clinical auditing work. So HeartsChat, just give you a little information about HeartsChat. I'm pretty sure Erica is going to fill you in about what she does. But HeartsChat has been around for the past few years. I believe Nicole and Erica used to work together also in Philadelphia. It's a nonprofit 501c3 nonprofit organization, and it's a platform for people just can turn around and talk to individuals, get to know each other, and emotional output, okay, as I kind of define it in my terms. So right now, HeartsChat is discussing hot topics in the mental health field. So we asked Erica to come on board tonight and to give us some advice about how the environment is affecting us in our mental health. So I'd like to introduce Erica Johnson. Take it away.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh.
Okay. Thank you for your warm welcome. I'm looking forward to having this discussion with everybody tonight. I heard some people made some military references. So I don't have any military experience, but I do currently work at Military One Source, and we do service military service members and their families. And so I've done just a few kind of just short presentations about what Military One Source is and what we do when some military members come, like for tours and different things like that at the office. So with you gave a great description about HeartsChat and everything with that. The one thing different from doing this right now in HeartsChat is we normally don't do video. We used to do video, but now it's more so podcast style. So I have some notes here. So you'll see me going up and down, looking at my notes for our conversation. So let me just go up. So the conversation tonight, I'm talking about mental health's impact concerning COVID-19 and police brutality. So both topics could actually be their own presentation because there's a lot to them. So I'm going to touch on a few things, and then hopefully we can have a full discussion about this. So let's start. So the way I see it, oh, and Nicole and Cedric, just so you know, I have my notes up here, so I can't see you if you have something you want to say.
No problem. Just you're gonna have the floor for a little while, and then we're gonna have it for an open discussion after that. Let us know when you kind of made your points, and then we're gonna have it open for open discussion.
All right. So these are two different topics, like I mentioned before, but the way I see it is they're both viruses, and I've heard other people sort of mention it that way as well. So you've got the coronavirus, and then you've got the racism virus. And at this point, there's no vaccines, for that. So what's the impact on mental health? So something I say often is mental health is everything. So it's the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment you go to sleep at night. It's ask yourself, do you wake up in a good mood? What are your behaviors like during the day? How do you cope when something doesn't go your way? And then at nighttime, are you able to go to sleep, or, are you restless? Do you sleep peacefully? Can you even sleep at all? So that everything, all of that is your mental health. So now we add on COVID-19, as I stated, mental health is everything from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. If you think about that, right now, sort of think about, what you do during the day. Like what's your day like, and kind of run through it, and think about, I do this, I do that, I do that. So typically we have some sort of routine. But since COVID, the majority of our routines has been shifted tremendously. So some of us are working from home, and that would be me. I'm now working from home, and that was a pretty big shift. And then others, unfortunately, have lost their jobs, and then other people still have to go to work, but it's stressful because you're putting yourself at risk because you still have to go out into the environment. So there's that. And then some people have children, and they have children who now can't go to school, so they're at home with them. And for those who do work from home, you're working from home with your kids at home with you. So that's, a whole thing in itself. So you've got that. So our routines are important because they keep us grounded. It's, you know what to expect. It's predictable. So with COVID-19, it's brought on an uncertainty in our lives that causes us to feel anxious, to worry, to be fearful, and to feel depressed. So when we talk about media, right now, we're pretty limited in the information that we have access to, because we only know the information that, they give us. So we're not privy to all the information that's available. And then there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. Because I can remember first they said, you need to wear a mask. Then it was, you don't need to wear a mask. Then it went back to, oh yeah, you do need to wear a mask. So that can cause a lot of confusion and, feeling helpless because you really just don't know what to do. So we're just doing what we're told. We're told to social distance. We're told to stay home. We have, stay-at-home orders that are in effect. And then that brings me to my next point. We also have loss. So with the social distancing, there's the loss of what, we used to consider normal, and the amount of social interactions you want to have, the places you want to go, where you want to meet your friends or family. And then we have the loss of plans. So if you're working hard every day, and, you've been saving your money, and you're thinking, I really want to go on a vacation, and that's the only motivation. I'm working so hard, and I just can't wait. The only thing keeping me going right now is this vacation, and now you can't go. Now the plans have changed, so that's really frustrating. And it also can make you feel like you just don't have any control, and that's a really, really, it can be, an uncomfortable feeling. We've also got the loss of people. There's the death toll. There's worried about losing somebody close to you, or like, what if I die, or you did lose somebody, to COVID-19. And so you have to cope with that. And then also watching the news and just seeing the amounts of deaths reported on the news, that can be really, really traumatizing. Seeing those numbers for each state and just across the world can be traumatizing. So actually, someone told me that the way they see it is they feel like COVID-19 is breaking families apart, because now, some families are like, hold on, I don't want you, stay back, or don't come over, stuff like that. And you can't go see your family members or your loved ones like you used to before, or in the way you wanted to spend time with them before. So it's just, there's a lot of anxiety, because there's the anxiety that maybe you feel like somebody might give the virus to you, or you could feel like, well, I don't want to go around people just in case, because I don't want anybody else to contract it from me, because imagine if you did give somebody the virus that has a weakened immune system, that can bring up a whole lot of guilt. So there's that. Let's see. So with all of that that I mentioned, it can all trigger anxiety, depression, PTSD, just to name a few. And it's really, really, really hard. So I'm going to move down to the next point, because dealing with all of that, now we add on the police brutality part and everything that's been coming with that. And police brutality isn't something that's new. It's been going on for, fortunately, a very long time. It's just right now there's a lot going on at one time right now, that's just, everything's just kind of seeping out. So with social media, it allows us to see graphic violence on rotation and on repeat. So we see it over and over and over again. And that can be a big issue, because it can cause us to feel, to be desensitized. And also, of course, it's really, really traumatizing. It's emotional, to watch someone be murdered. And when we're talking about the Black community, when you watch someone be murdered and maybe you think, that person could, or looks like my dad or my husband, or my uncle or brother or teacher that I had, it's really, really devastating, and it's exhausting. The fact that it's not the first time, the fact that it has been going on for so long, and even right now, recently in the news, we've seen two, back-to-back police brutality cases. So it's just a lot going on. And with that, it causes outrage, anger, hopelessness, fear, anxiety, confusion. There's depression, and there's PTSD. So I wanted to share just a post that I saw the other day that I think kind of sums it up pretty well. So it says, please notice how traumatized you are after a week of being constantly aware of police brutality, racial inequity, community violence, and covert and overt racism. Are you on a razor's edge emotionally? Have you cried? Are you feeling furious and helpless at the same time? Now imagine that trauma, fear, and sorrow as the soundtrack to your daily life, playing softly some days, blaring in your ears on others, but always there. You notice it, of course, but you just keep doing what you need to do, because what else is there? It never stops. Now imagine how that would affect the way you move through the world, your spirit, the resiliency of your body. That is what it's like to be Black in America. So I thought that really brought it home, especially with that first paragraph, just thinking about how, for somebody who hasn't experienced this, to kind of think about how you've been feeling, just in the past week with everything going on, compared to someone that's Black that feels this way, every day. So moving to the next thing, with that, and that first part for people that, aren't part of, people that are not in, who are part of the Black community, people feel moved to do something, while some are attempting to do something in a positive way, or like in a peaceful way. There's others that are not, and they're not for the same cause, and it's really scary. And then when it seems as if we can actually start to leave the house again, now we have curfews in some cities because of the violence and the looting and things like that. We have military on the streets, there's looters on the streets, situations that some of us have never even experienced before. And then again, there's the unpredictability. And then there's the discrimination, which causes folks to be on guard. And so when you're on guard, that might look like your heart or your heart or your stomach dropping when you see the police. I know that no matter how many times, if I'm driving and the police officer flashes his lights behind me, rather I'm just in the way. Most of the time I'm just kind of in the way. I try not to speed, but I can't feel my legs. Like my legs just go like wobbly. It makes me so scared when I see those flashing lights pull up behind me, when I'm driving, if I happen to be in their path. Other things you might feel, it might look like running away from the police, getting angry, your fight or flight is activated. So although COVID-19 and police brutality, two different situations, there's some common ground that they share right now. And then they both have the financial strain that adds a whole nother stress that, I didn't even touch on that. That's a whole nother thing. People have lost their jobs. And then you also have, with some of the cities that have been looted pretty badly, maybe your local nearby grocery store isn't there. And so now you have to get a ride or drive, to a further store. That's gas money. Or you take public transportation and, you have to go, that's a longer trip. You have to go further. So it just goes on and on and on. So I just wanted to bring up just a few questions that you can think about. And then when we start to talk, maybe we can, if anybody feels willing to share, if anything came up for them with some of these questions. So what can you do in terms of mental health to cope with anxiety and depression? So the first thing you can do is, or one thing you can do is check in with yourself. You have to bring attention to it, because it's really hard to deal with something if you haven't even brought attention to it. So that means slowing down, because I know we're go, 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 busy, busy, busy. And I can be one of those people too, one of those go, 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 always doing something. But acknowledging that you do have to slow down to check in with yourself, and even the people around you that you care about. Sometimes you do need, or it might take somebody to point it out to you for you to recognize or realize that. So you can also bring that attention to somebody else if you notice that they're just not themselves, or if you feel like I'm just not myself, or I just feel kind of off, kind of check in to see what that could be. So there's a few ways you can do that. You can think about your thoughts, and if you ask yourself right now, what have your thoughts been like? What have you been thinking about? What's been your focus? How do you feel emotionally? And sometimes with your emotions, it can be hard to pinpoint, I feel overwhelmed, or I feel sad, or, sometimes we just don't know. Like, it's hard to describe the feeling that you have, but at least a lot of times it can be a bit easier to pinpoint how your body feels. So you might say, like I mentioned, my legs get really wobbly. So that tells me I'm nervous, or you might have that pit in your stomach, or kind of like that sick feeling in your stomach, or maybe it's hard to breathe, or your chest beats faster. So checking in with some of those physical triggers that you're feeling, and then ask yourself, what's my behavior been like lately? If we think about COVID-19, a lot of families that maybe you have a bigger family, you're in the house together, and you don't get as much of a break because we can't go to the places that we normally would have been able to go to kind of take a break and de-stress. So there could be tension. Maybe you're yelling at the kids a little bit more because the kids are in the house and they've got a lot of questions and they want to leave, and just all different type of scenarios. Or with police brutality, it could be maybe you and your significant other just have different political views, or maybe you could be for peaceful protests and they're not. They don't think that that's going to solve anything. They have difference of opinion about that, so you could be getting into arguments with that. So that's very stressful. So just your relationships, or maybe your behavior could be, you were going to the grocery store, but now things have intense in your community and you feel like, I just don't feel safe. I don't want to go to the grocery store anymore. Or maybe you didn't notice that you were feeling that way. You just haven't been going. So paying attention to your behaviors to kind of give you some insight to what might be going on so that you can address it. Something else, so after those things, there's finding ways to cope. So what do you tell yourself? What do you tell yourself to kind of try to, if you have that pit in your stomach, to try to decrease that, to calm yourself, make yourself feel a little bit better? Utilizing your supports. Therapy is an excellent support to utilize. But you can also talk to a loved one, or talk to a friend. I like to say, don't underestimate the power of a conversation, because it can feel so good just to get something off your chest, or have somebody that you trust, talk to, that they can relate to you, and just kind of get it out there and talk, even if it doesn't solve anything, just kind of, not that you're, we're talking to resolve this issue, but just to talk, just to have somebody to talk to sometimes. So that can really help. Then when we go back to what you can't do, maybe not being able to go to the gym, see the people you normally would, go out to eat, different activities, go to the spa, we really have to get creative. As far as working out, you can find videos that you can watch, workout videos online. I've seen families have like family movie night and they try to get creative with how they do that. What friend of mine had asked me, how do you stay productive with everything going on? I feel very anxious, but I still want to be productive. Maybe you could donate. I think that doing positive things to where you feel like you're making a difference can help to elevate your mood and help you feel a bit better. So you can donate or you can volunteer, because there's lots of families right now and just people in general who really need support and help, and especially that financial support. And then there's also, I have a link in the colon subject. I can give you the link if you want to share with the group, to places where you can donate, sign petitions. I've had friends send me email templates that need to go out to certain places for justice. So there's lots of different things that you can do. And then some of the simpler things. I really like to focus in on the simpler things to do, because there's things that you can't remember. You have easy access to those things. And to me, I just feel like it's more accessible, and it's things you can actually do right then and there. Those are the type of things that I like. So you can do a puzzle, listen to music, cooking. Those are just a few things. Take a break from all of the updates that you see. You have to catch up on them because you have to take care of yourself. You have to turn it off sometimes. Sometimes you just need to do nothing and recognize that that's okay if you just need to just do absolutely nothing. So those are some of the points that I wanted to bring up. Just a few. There's a lot. Like I said, there are two very big topics. They could go on for hours with this, but I did want to open it up for the group. If anybody thought about those questions that I mentioned before, if anything came up for you about in your daily habits or anything, or if you want to share anything about any of the other points.
Thank you, Erica, for unraveling and combining those two really heavy topics. You really connected the both of those. They are two pretty opposite, not opposite, they're different things that we are all being impacted on by right now, but you really put the similarities of what the impacts of them are and what we're facing, and then also attaching how that can be impacting our mental health. And for those who have just joined us or joined a little bit later, Erica was just speaking on the points of the environmental impacts, specifically focusing on COVID and police brutality. So she was just unraveling how they have changed, specifically COVID has changed all of our lives and what that impact has had. And then also police brutality and racism, how that has been a long-stemming concern and issue within this country, but specifically, it really isn't worldwide, but where it's really in this country of what's been unraveling more right now, and then how that has been really impacting all of us and can impact us. So she has opened the floor for all of us to have a discussion together. If anybody had any thoughts upon of what she stated, not just the questions that she had, but anything hit home or anything you wanted to expand upon of what she said, or if you have any other questions for her to expand upon. Mm-hmm. So if anybody wants to go, you can unmute yourself and go for it. Otherwise, we'll begin to some of the points.
I'll start off. Erica, I appreciate you with that thoughtful explanation and give me a different perspective on how our environment is actually affecting us. I mean, you gave a couple of points that I wasn't even thinking about, and also how to actually deal with your present status, your present mentality right now with everything going on. One of the things that you talked about is one of the few things that you talked about, particularly with the COVID-19 virus and how that has traumatized the world. Okay, and everybody's affected. So I think, me and my wife was talking earlier, is that so everybody right now is actually suffering through some type of mental health impact. Okay, and when you said the COVID, and I started to really think of it on a international level, everybody right now has a mental health issue. Okay, we're all trying to deal with it in our different ways. Okay, and we've been trying to do that for the past several months. But now, you know, and I'm glad that you represented that as an environmental thing, okay, Erica, because now we're looking at what happened on the media, what is happening in these in our communities, okay, the killings, okay, of our black men, of people of color, okay, that getting the media attention right now, okay, and that has compounded on COVID. So if you wasn't affected by the COVID, now you're being affected by this social injustice, you know, that's happening. So now we have to combine everybody. Now, I think truly right now at this point, everybody has a mental health disturbance because of their environment. Okay, and I appreciate you, Erica, for giving us suggestions how to deal with it. But I'm going to leave the floor up to somebody else to make a comment. Thank you.
And Cedric, I can even say, based off what you said, as far as COVID, personally, I've been, like, I work from home now, and I go to the stores, you know, when I have to go. Sometimes I do grocery delivery, but that was just something I always did anyway, the grocery delivery. But then the protests and everything has really scared me. And I live in DC, and one night I could hear people outside, you know, from where I live, and I heard that there was a store nearby me that got looted. And I was telling Nicole recently, I've been hearing gunshots outside. So even if I felt safer, like, okay, well, I pretty much stay inside. I wear my mask, wear my gloves when I go out. Now there's, you know, gunshots outside, and I can't do anything about that. So I think you're right. If you feel like you weren't affected by one, now you're affected by the other. You know, plus, you know, being African American anyway, you know, there's that too. So you made me think about that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I guess I can truly say that, you know, the killing of George Floyd and the rest of the people has really affected me personally. Being an African American male, even though, you know, I consider myself a non-threatening black male, I'm still threatened in society. Okay, so, and I'm still threatening to some people. So what's been happening now is you know, you just can imagine. I can't imagine being encountered again, okay, by a policeman, okay, or by somebody who is have a problem with my skin. Right now, it is so much stress and so much anger, so much hatred out there. Makes me not want to go outside. Okay, truthfully, it makes me not want to go outside. I don't feel like going through the stressors and putting myself through it. Okay, that it's not going to be on my part. It's going to be towards me. So why should I put myself in that position right now? And I try to, you know, kind of desensitize what's going on, but I can't. And I can't explain it. It's been happening. But, you know, does it affect me mentally? Yes. Okay, and I know it affects a lot of people, you know, mentally. And somebody said, a friend of mine actually called me the other day and said their child was looking at the news and screamed out and saying, "Mommy, is the world ending?" Okay, so, and this was a 9-year-old kid. Okay, 9-year-old kid is asking their mother, "Is the world ending?" Okay, so if we look at us as adults being traumatized with all the things that are going on, do we forget about the children? Okay, we have to really look at how this environmental indifferences, traumas, and all this are impacting our children. Okay, not just only us. Yeah. So if we say that, hey, you know, the Holocaust and slavery and all these other things has affected us for years and is trickling down, just imagine what is going to be trickled down to our children right now and how they're going to have to try to deal with, you know, futuristic, you know, events and so forth. So this is a very crucial time in our society to really inform ourselves, educate ourselves, okay, actually be helpers and assist other people, we can get through the coronavirus. We're not going to get through the long-lasting, entrenched things or personalities of people. We can't get through that. But if we actually focus on our mental health, and really think about our well-being as people, I think that we can get through anything. Okay. But I do agree with you, man. Out here is so terrible. It just makes me not want to go out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shamrandi. Thank you guys for inviting me. I appreciate you for inviting me. Erica was mentioning that she's in DC, and I just really fully caught wind of what's going on in DC because I listen to journalist Demetra L. Lucas, and she podcasts, and she's been staying in DC because her parents are there. I didn't realize how bad it is, and I just hope that you're safe at all times. As for Cedric, I could only imagine. For me, it is bittersweet because I'm a boy mom, 2 little boys. And I want to say that this is the first time I felt like emotional until like I heard like, oh God, what about the children? Because I hear my children like talking, in the back of my head, because they're like here, they're like refusing to go to bed. And like, it never really dawned upon me. It didn't like, and I think it's because I know that I cannot intake everything that's being given on the media, right? It's just impossible. It's not healthy, right? And I guess the media, they have to keep the information looping for everybody that's been under a rock. And I've been one of those people. Like I didn't realize even what was happening. Like COVID did that to us, right? We're like in our little hole. And I ended up seeing an image one day on social media, and I try to put up content, and I'm like, why are they reliving this Mike Brown story? I'm like totally like oblivious. It is like a brand new victim, right? So that was traumatic for me. I was living in New York at the time when the Mike Brown situation happened, and I just remember us seeing everything on camera, and then we being told what you saw is not really what happened. That it was just like a different level of mind screwing. So I know it's tough, and it's tough for me. I could imagine it being tough for people who feel like they don't have an answer for this, right? Like they're just kind of like born into this era, and they don't know the weight, they don't know the heaviness that that precedes us. They don't know about the heaviness of it all. And I think that if everybody just like, there has to be a level of empathy. There's a lack of empathy, right? People want to say, oh, everything is love. No, you don't got to love everybody. No. You don't have to love everybody. The empathy, you got to have empathy. Because if you don't have empathy, I'm going to tell you something. I think a lot of like white people don't know that, right? That Black people are like kings of empathism, right? Like we're not trying to like, I'm not trying to fight nobody's battle, right? But we have to already come like really equipped with empathy to kind of like deal when nonsense happens to us. And then we have to still move on with our lives and still rear our children and still love our men and still be, functioning women in our community. The two of you as a couple, I really applaud you for, definitely sharing your meeting this evening. I'm so glad I was able to like catch a tail end piece of it. I have like a one that's about to be 4, and he's like turning 40, but he's like about to be 4 years old. And then I have a 7-year-old, right? And the one that's about to be 4 is the boss of the 7-year-old, and he thinks he's the boss of me. So like my hands are like all kinds of full. And I'm still trying to like pivot, my interior design business and let it still serve its purpose. You understand? So it's like my hands are like so filled. But thank you guys for inviting me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate you. We appreciate you.
Thank you for being honest and vulnerable and telling us about, your personal experience and, kind of how, I like how you put that and said that of how how one, this moment, it kind of hits you that, what about my children? And you got emotional with that. And I think that comes to one, the systemic trauma of everything, that this is something that you become desensitized about, that of what Erica was saying. And two is that also with the compactness of everything that is happening, all of a sudden that's what happens with different things that you're going through, not just these heavy things that we're going through, but just mental health as a whole, with different things that are happening. All of a sudden it can just woof, it can fly over you and hit you, and you'll be like, wow. And you have that aha moment, but it's the aha moment of emotions, of feeling. And I watched you, that you allowed yourself to go through that in that moment. You're here, everybody's here, and you allowed that. So I do commend you for allowing yourself to do that, because that was what you needed in that moment.
We appreciate you. And that, you know what, and that would just remind me of what Erica said about the fight or flight. And if you think about what's happening to the adults, and this is what you're talking in reference to the kids and the adults, we're traumatized right now. Okay, we as adults are traumatized. So when we're in fear or we're being attacked or whatever, okay, we think about, either fight or flight. Okay, most of the time we think about flight. Okay, getting away in whatever. We don't think about who we're leaving, our children. Okay, and I'm talking just about, in thought process. Okay, so if I cannot deal with the mumbo jumbo that's happening right now, okay, how can I even worry about anybody else? I sometimes forget about the kids. Okay, I forget about everybody else. Okay, I have to turn around and deal with me. I have to deal with all this first. Then I could probably deal with the kids or somebody else or whatever. So, we're right now, we're unfocused right now.
One thing I would share. Can you guys hear me pretty clearly?
Thank you. Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. So I appreciate everyone sharing their piece. We actually did a segment on my side. So for the new ones that kind of came in, David Pineda here, DP. I work with veterans and helping them, navigate the VA system, get the benefits and things that they need to be able to get the help they need, both physically, psychologically, and so forth. So one of the topics that we touched on a few weeks ago was the effects of social isolation for trauma victims. And what I would share is that when you're dealing with either a veteran or anyone who's been through something traumatic, dealing with a level of post-traumatic stress disorder, to seclude is where you naturally go, right? You cocoon, you seclude, you're in fight or flight, and you don't want to let people in. Enter now a social pandemic that pretty much puts you right in your sweet spot. For many that we work with on my side of the house, they finally have come to a place of getting help. They finally have come to a place of acknowledging, as a Korean War veteran, as a Vietnam War veteran, 20, 30, 40 years, that my kids don't know who I am. My grandkids don't know who I am, because what came back is a different person than who left. So now this shell of a person is what they've known for the past 20 plus years. They finally get to a point of admitting, I do need help. I am dealing with an invisible disability or something that has plagued me that I didn't have the language to express. Enter now this social distancing aspect. It will regress for many individuals back into where they came from. The problem, though, is that you're dealing now with an instance where you cannot unknow what you know, right? So it's a thing where many might think, I'll go back to my cocoon, but the problem now is you are aware of what you're dealing with. You understand the things that were happening in your mind and your psyche and in your being, and now to try to go back like you don't know this, it's not going to work. So looking at the effects of social isolation for trauma victims who are finally taking that journey of speaking out. We have individuals that are survivors of military sexual trauma, survivors of things, of a variety of things that may cause PTSD. But as a whole for mental health, dealing in this environment, sadly, it can enable a lot of bad and negative, muscle memory functions. So I think it's pressing to have these conversations and talk about the fact that though you might want to seclude and you might want to social distance, even things like this, using technology to be able to at least put words to action and share, it's a big one, right? So I empathize with Erica. I'm in the DMV myself, being in Virginia. And I also am from New York, so I was in New York City when that happened as well. So, my kids, it's the same thing, right? So the different hats that I wear both as a veteran, having PTSD, the things I mentioned, then being a minority in America, my kids being half Spanish, half Black, having to deal with the fact that, you know, when you go out, hey, are you dressed the right way? Do you have what you need? Like all the checklists that nobody else has to deal with, we have to deal with those checklists and have those conversations before any of these things happen, right? It's one of those things where here goes the next one. And sadly for our children, what starts to happen is they get callous to this, right? It's like, okay, here comes another one. And that's not where we want to operate, right? We want to operate in a conversation of saying, well, how does this make you feel? And it's easier for kids to the point to say, you know, hey, it's kind of happens. It's the norm, right? It's the world is crazy. We should move somewhere else. And it's like, no, the change starts here, right? Let's have a conversation. This is incorrect. This isn't right, right? Let's put words to action. Let's have a conversation and slowly begin the process that, you know, we might not be able to change things overnight, but even something small, like we had some protesting here locally in our communities, and, you know, kids took part of it and went out there and got involved. And it's just slowly giving power and words to things. But my point being all that, both as a veteran, a minority, as a parent, all the different points that are being hit on, regardless of if you're a soldier or a veteran or not a veteran, being in this current climate that we're dealing with, it's like a kettle, you know, pressure cooker almost, right? Of all these different emotions and things that are happening. And sadly, we see a lot of negatives happening that for many will sadly perpetuate with their fear, right? I want to seclude because if I'm dealing with PTSD, it's fight or flight. And if I'm, you know, if my PTSD barometer is broken and it's always in fight, right, or defense or awareness, well, now what I'm seeing on TV validates that, right? If I go outside, these things will happen. So for many veterans, just going to the, you know, mailbox, they don't want to do that because they fear something may happen. Enter these events, well, of course it's going to happen. I just saw it happen where I live. So it really has a deep impact. And again, it happens for any trauma victim. I'm just speaking to the veteran plight, but it's the same for any that may fear like something will happen. I live in DC, like you mentioned. I hear gunshots outside. If you're a trauma victim, military sexual trauma victim, or sexual assault victim, all of that. Now, you know, those triggers are constantly being flared up. So I appreciate this dialogue to share awareness about these things, because I think it really shows that, hey, we're still here. We're having this conversation. And though it's raw and it's painful, this is how it starts. This is how we change things, and we leverage technology. So I appreciate everyone's sharing and being invited to the forum.
Thank you so much, David. And thank you for saying what you're saying. So that was actually exactly where I was going with it. The next part of it was the impact for individuals who have PTSD, what this could be doing with individuals who are being now triggered by everything that is occurring. And I don't need to touch on it any more than what you did, because you said it just eloquently enough. And I appreciate that and your perspective on it.
Yeah, I wanted to add something. My wife, Nicole David, actually showed me a video cut of y'all talking about PTSD. And what rang in my head about what I heard, one of the things that you stated, that we sometimes relate PTSD to veterans. Okay, but PTSD could be, anybody could be experiencing PTSD. And y'all was talking about that, and people kind of forget about, you know, maybe misdiagnosis, you know, PTSD with people, or not really.
The stigma and so forth. Well, I'll tell you straight out, just being a Black man in America, you have PTSD, what's going on right now. So let's just call it that right there.
Yeah.
Right. To the point that you said when someone puts the lights behind you. So I am in the process of retiring from federal law enforcement. So I, you know, got a badge and a gun and all that nine. Guess what? Those lights go on behind me. I feel just like you do, because they don't see a uniform. They don't see the job. They don't see a badge. You know, how many officers who are minorities have, you know, been assaulted, have been shot, have been mistaken. Right. So even being a part of that world doesn't change the fact that the lights go on behind you, your heart rate goes up. Even if you know that after you have to get over that hump of, hey, you know, I'm a veteran here, or I'm on the job, or I'm just going over here. The fact that happens, that alone is to that point. So I would agree right now, if you are a Black man in America, PTSD is definitely something that for many is a true reality.
Total reality. And I want to say one thing, and I'm going to pass it to Buck. I have an uncle who experiencing PTSD since the Vietnam War, and never got a good night's sleep. He's traumatized every day because of dreams and just, reliving those flashbacks and the whole nine. I've been trying to get him services for the past couple of years. He's just actually received services, just like you say, Dave, after 30 something, 40 darn years. I mean, these guys, they were our heroes. Those were the heroes back in the day. Those are the guys that were solid as a rock. So, you can't show no weakness. You can't do none of that stuff. So, what's going on in the environment now, just like you said, if you was already secluding yourself inside and stuff like that, and scared to go out, I mean, you're petrified now. Okay, so you made a good point, man. This PTSD is a full-line gambit for everybody now. And it's very important that we turn around and deal with it. And this is one of the things that the foundation is going to be assisting with, getting the people in a support system, calling that next person for the helpline or whatever, and try to get assistance and try to move forward in supporting as many people as possible.
As a veteran, I would just share that I think that if including that aspect would be very beneficial in what you all are doing, because to the point you made of those Vietnam veterans, Korean War veterans, the biggest issue they've had is there's a lot of peacocking in the military. And what I mean by that is it's go Army beat Navy, right? I was like, the Marine Corps is this is that. So guess what happened when that uncle came back from Vietnam? He went to the VFW, he went to the American Legion, as you're told to do. Yeah. And when you got there, you had a Korean War veteran say, you think you had it bad, son? Let me tell you about my time in Korea, right? Now the Gulf War guy came back, went there to get some help. And the guy who came from Vietnam says, you think you had it bad in Iraq? Well, let me tell you about Vietnam. And it becomes a showboating thing where you would need to have a safe environment where you can share what you're dealing with. Because here's the reality. A woman who is an admin person who may have been raped in service is not going to want to share her truth because she didn't have it as bad as a guy who got his leg blown off, right? Or the cook who had a traumatic event doesn't feel he should speak up because an infantry guy had it worse. And we keep operating in this, somebody else has it worse. We keep operating in this, you think you had it bad? Well, let me tell you about my time in Iraq or my time in Afghanistan, my time in Vietnam. And that never lets us get to a place. So there's a place for rivalry and that, right, in the efforts of war fighting. But the problem is we don't take the camouflage off. So when we transition into civilian life, we still wear camouflage in our psyche and we blend in and hide those things because I don't want to show you that I'm weak. I don't want to show you that I have issues. So, hey, I'm fine. How's Vietnam? Is what we did. Too easy. Stop it, Buck. You got 3 divorces, 5 failed jobs, so forth and so on. So my point to this is having conversations like this, people would think that military organizations are good or veteran organizations are great, but there's a lot of that happening, right? It's too much ego going on. And a place like this where it's like, hey, look, you might just meet the only veteran here, but your truth remains. For many veterans that I've talked to, it's like, this is the first time I've talked about this in 40 years. I've been to all the groups and no one ever gave me a chance to talk because we're too busy. You think you had it bad. Well, let me tell you about the Marine Corps or this thing. So to the efforts that you guys are doing, I think creating a safe haven to where, hey, it doesn't matter where you serve. It doesn't matter your branch of service, your rank, your job, infantry, cook, supply. It doesn't matter. Trauma is trauma is trauma is trauma. And that's the pedestal that we take because it doesn't matter what you did. The fact is you endured something that was stressful and that was traumatic. Now let's have a conversation. So I applaud what you guys are doing because it strips away some of that where it's like many have said, like Erica mentioned, she may have not worked with veterans specifically. That's sometimes a good thing because among veterans, there's a lot of that, chest pounding happening. So this is a good place that could become a safe haven for those that might feel like, okay, well, no one's here to say, what are you complaining about? So let me tell my truth.
Yeah. Very, very good point, Dave. Yeah. Very good point. And that's, hopefully we can have, that type of platform for everybody to share. Okay, we're going to be doing a storyline, very soon. So we're going to keep everybody informed with that.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any comments that they wanted to make that they wanted to have their input? I know. Okay. Go ahead.
Me?
Yes.
Linda? Oh, okay. Hi. All right. So, boy, oh boy, I always say I'm an energy healer, spiritual energy healer, and this is why, because when you are speaking about the traumas and the past terrors from, anything that would trigger you, it's hitting me like crazy. So I'm feeling it, and I'm like, whoa, welling up. So I wasn't really prepared for that, but as a it's energy. It's coming to others. That's why the TV, when it's constantly barraging the family with all the negativity from COVID and this most recent brutality, you know. So what people, they're absorbing it into areas of their bodies. And that's why Erica said she didn't feel her legs, because as an energy healer teacher, I understand that's your base, your foundation. You're part of this earth, and without your legs, you're going up, you're floating out of your body. So maybe when the police are behind you and you feel that lack of person, your body, you're not there, you're just running away. You know, when we talk about that, you can ground yourself when you're not in the predicament, so that when you are in that position, you know what to do to be powerful. So when that police drives up behind you, you know, you'll say, I got this. My presence is strong, and I got this. And, you know, different ways to handle those things that might trigger you. And it's energy, boy, just speaking, because I didn't prepare myself, you know, and even teaching to clear space when you're in your private space empowers you and strengthens you. So you're not afraid to face, and to allow you to clear things that have happened and forgive those past traumas that others have done to you or have come into your life, not of your own will. You know, you went to war and you had to do those for your country, but we're humans and we can only handle so much. I don't care how tough you are, you know, and it shouldn't matter what the hell color we are, excuse me, but I see that people of color have been treated awfully, and it's pitifully hurtful, you know. So I think our youth are going to be the generation, 100% of them, that are never going to allow any sisters or brothers of any color, gender, who you love, you know, if you're, you know, sexual identity even, it's going to be okay. So I just want you to know, it's energy that's we're all just putting out all this energy. So sometimes we have to learn to get to a space to protect ourselves in our homes. And,
yeah. And we feed off each other's energy, and that's what's happening with these marches and these you know, different events, people vandalizing things. You know, all of this negative energy.
But the positive is just as more powerful. I think it became more powerful, and that goes along with the media as well, and what they began to focus on as a whole. And that's going with COVID as well, is that what you take in is also what is going to also impact you as well.
You know, Linda, you said something important that I tell my clients. I said, you know, to decrease depression, anxiety, paranoia, I said, one thing I want you to do when you go home. Don't turn on the TV.
Right.
Okay? If you turn on the TV gives you anxious, gives you paranoid, you know, and this is why that little 9-year-old child I was talking to you about earlier, when she said that, you know, asked her mommy, is the world ending?
All right.
Okay, so if this child is looking at different events and she's, you know, putting it all into perspective, saying, oh my God, the world is ending. Just imagine you having a mental health issue, dealing with paranoid or maybe schizophrenia or something like that. And man, this is going to, you know, compound it astronomically. Okay, so I appreciate you, Linda, to give us that energy is one of the main factors of maybe controlling things that, you know, what Erica was referring to.
Which you can control.
Happens to me all the time. Okay, I get nervous, you know, every time I see flashing lights. I don't even care if it's just an ambulance going by, but you know, but I appreciate that, Linda. Anybody else want to chime in?
There they go. You're muted.
Sorry, we had technical error. Sorry about that. So We thank you, Linda, for just explaining that. I think that goes on to something that Erica has. I've known Erica for a while and some of her methods and how she says, of which she does within counseling. It's kind of certain things and that I've done with it is with what is in your control. And so I think that's kind of what you were saying, Linda, is kind of when we have the ability to control, when you're in the household, when you are in those places that you have the control. In certain instances, we don't have control over in certain places. And so when we can try to practice that, when we can try to practice it to be in our safe places if we feel safe, and that sometimes is the hard places. Some people don't have places where they do feel safe because it's where their mind is where they don't feel safe. That's what's creating a space of tension and despair. And so practicing that and being able to get there. And I think kind of the main thing that I get off of what we're talking about today is just that all of what we're experiencing right now is creating one is creating a lot of trauma and PTSD, but not only just that is bringing up other people's past traumas and PTSDs now, and that bringing up could be either from either one of these environmental impacts that we're having when we're talking about COVID or the police brutality and racism. Because COVID, we think about is the main thing when that first started was what I thought about is what is happening to individuals who are in homes now with people that they're not safe with.
Oh, it's terrible.
And that's where I mainly went. And so there was a spike in actual reports of abuse and what happens with individuals with suicide, of where this was something that they were contemplating before, and now they're isolated. Now they have to stay home. Now they're within their head more. Now they have whatever it was triggering them before, this could be triggering more. And so now you add on an additional trauma that's occurring that can bring out, depending on what an individual is going through, even more. And so the point of what we wanted to do with this specific discussion, and Erica, you definitely did an amazing job with compounding the two and bringing into the discussion for all of us, is to open the space to talk about this in a way for us to understand how it's impacting our mental health, how we are all being impacted on it. And I think what Cedric said is pretty much touches to the point, is that every single person, I think right now, worldwide, not just we're talking nationally, not with who's in this group, is being impacted on some level, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, whether it's creating something you never had, whether it's triggering something you already had. Is everybody has some mental health concern right now that we're either trying to maintain or that's not being maintained at all. And so we all have that commonality, and this is a time where mental health and maintaining that, however you do that, it doesn't have to just be as, we're therapists, it doesn't have to be with therapy. There's so many different outlets to be able to help individuals, but to be taking care of ourselves. And that's why we wanted to have this, is kind of to have this discussion with everybody, and everybody definitely participating and bring up some amazing points. And we thank you for participating, and every person who was spoke their own story as well. We thank you for being vulnerable and being truthful to yourself and truthful to us. And
I think one more positive thing.
Yes.
Just because it is so hard, I do think one positive thing it's done for mental health is it's helped to destigmatize mental health, because so many people don't want to talk about their mental health issues. So now, like you said, everybody has this mental health issue. And I've seen on social media a lot more posts about what you can do, how to get help, just talking about it a lot more lately too.
Yes. And I also add on the positive note is that, we started developing our foundation right before COVID truly hit. And I will say that was maybe our silver lining, is that we really got a lot of individuals who were coming in to want to support our mission. And not saying they wouldn't have done that before, but I feel as though everyone felt a sense of camaraderie, of everyone feeling that they've all been impacted on the same level, and we all wanted to help one another. And we feel blessed that we've had the support that we've had, and individuals have seen the need for mental health. But I think it goes on just in general, is that a lot of people have been coming together. And I think we can see that with the marches that are happening, is that they're saying, hasn't happened even back when Martin Luther King times were happening. The diversity of these marches and the inclusivity that has been happening is that if there's a different feel, there's a different energy, there's a different type of what's happening out there. And I think that kind of can be feeding, I don't know, it could just be the generation and where we've actually moved to. But I think it also has to do with COVID and people kind of being isolated and being to a point to where we all feel together a little bit more. So there's always a silver lining, I feel as though in some negative situations, there's always some silver lining. We always can get a silver lining from something. It doesn't, in a worse situation, there's always some type of silver lining. So thank you for bringing that point in, Erica. We're not ending it on some negative note, but there is a silver lining to all of this and positivity that we can get from it.
Folks, anybody else before we end our session?
I do want to say something.
Sure.
When it was getting to the point where more and more states had to shut down, because I had traveled right before it had gotten to what it ended up being. We're in Florida. We're in the land of Florida. We're like the last to know a lot of stuff. It's like I left Fort Lauderdale Airport and ended up in Hartsville, and I'm like, what's going on? Why does everybody have on gloves and masks, right? Because there's none of that going on in Florida. The constant thought that kept crossing my path, whether I was in a group of faith-based personnel or a healing group or anything like that, it was everybody felt, especially people that are like empaths, natural empaths, they were like, there's about to be a shift. There's going to be a shift that's going to happen. And let me tell you what COVID did. COVID put us in a place where it didn't happen for everybody, right? Because the country still has to run, but it allowed there to be free speech without worrying about being persecuted for the free speech. Could you imagine? It's like the Fifth Amendment really doesn't, it's like it's not for everybody, okay? And I know because I was a victim of this as well. And with like people just widely being unemployed, widely their businesses not being operable, widely every job you were courting, trying to get for the past 4 months, hitting, dodging, virtual, in-person interviews, all that stuff shut down. And it's like, wait a minute, it's an opportunity to speak my truth. So I just thought it was so like, what happened to the gentleman? It's like that happening. It's like that situation coming and then meeting a place where people feel free to speak. Because I'm going to tell you, be very honest with everybody. I am not young. I'm in my 40s, okay? And I've been working since I was 15. And one thing I know for sure is that you are never really allowed to really speak your truth. It's like you're persecuted for it. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's like, if that happened to me, little old me, I come from a West Indian background. I never heard my parents say a negative thing about Black people ever growing up. Never did I didn't come from that household. So because I didn't come from that household, it was just such a rude awakening. Here I am now trying to be an adult. I'm in society. I'm working my job. I'm sharing my human sunshine with everyone. And then that is constantly there. I'm going to tell you that it's not easy. It's not going to be smooth for everyone. It's not going to be easy for everybody to hear. But one thing that we do have to do is definitely allow people to speak their truth. That's where the healing is going to come from. Because I think if someone's truth hears the right ear, maybe that'll open up the ways for more people to be more empathetic, right? Because there's really a lack of empathy. That's where all of this stuff is coming from, right? Because if I have a family, I have children, you have family, you have children. Why are you trying to stop me from succeeding? You know what I mean? And I've had this conversation one too many times in the last 2 weeks. This is women that have a platform and they're able to fully support themselves financially, with that platform, they're the ones that are speaking out about it. So could you imagine all the other people that have to depend on their little, you know, Publix job or a job that, you know, that they're going to be scrutinized against for the next 10 years of their career, right? It's like they are muted, you know, they're stopped from speaking their truth. And I'm just grateful that people are able to like have that platform to like really just like be honest, like, hey, this is what happened to me. This is when it happened to me. It's not fair that it happened to me. And like they have a place to share that because that didn't exist before.
And that goes to also what we plan to do, which I think you kind of validated of what one of the things we want to do is create a storyline for individuals. Is we want to have individuals that never felt that they had a place to say their story. They had a place to be able to tell anybody what was going on with them. And we want to create that space for them. And I feel as though what you said is kind of validates that, is that people need to be heard. People want to be heard, and that if you're not heard, or whether it's something that you felt injustice for, or whether it's something that you've been feeling, and that can fester and then can create into another place. And so I think it's an important thing to be heard, to be validated from what you have been saying, or at least just to be heard. That's it, and not be necessarily prosecuted, like you said, for what you're feeling. You know, because as we say, you know, all the time when I tell people, no one can tell you you're wrong for what you're feeling. That's one thing. You can't say that you're wrong for what you're feeling. So I want to just close out with telling everybody we appreciate everybody coming in. We appreciate you, Erica, for taking the time out and creating this amazing dialogue. We will be having our next meeting June 22nd, where Mr. David will actually be our guest speaker. So everyone, please tune in when we post and send the email out to everyone. You'll see what the topic will be about. So thank you so much again for everybody attending. You have a peaceful week, and take care of yourselves.
Yes.
Thank you guys.
Peace, everyone. All right, take care.
Bye.